Hello everyone, this is Jake from Jake's Scary Unusual. In today's story, we're going to be going over the Northern Territories and a man named Ronnie and a woman named Mary. This is a couple that went to go explore those areas and they see some very interesting things. If you all enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and share, and definitely don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate all your support like always, and enjoy the show. Ronnie and Mary were a couple from Nevada and loved traveling together. They're in their mid 40s and they couldn't get enough of the world. Ever since they were in their 20s and they got together, they traveled and went everywhere together. But as they got older, they really enjoyed hiking, so much so that they started doing long adventures like the Appalachian Trail and all those types of things. They absolutely loved it when they can find a new trail, especially around where they lived. But they were getting a little bored in their area and they're like, you know what? Let's travel a little more abroad. They've run all around the world before, but now they're really looking into doing something a little more treacherous and more interesting. They got so bored of everything else. So they decided to go up to the Northern Territories in Canada. So they had to renew their passports and things, so they got all that taken care of because it was actually a while since they traveled outside of the States because they were so busy on saving up for this trip. They were so excited about it. They were telling their kids about it. At this point, their kids were moved out. So they're like, you know what? It's time to do something a little more serious, more adventurous. I mean, if something happens, our kids are already independent. We don't have to worry about that as much. Obviously they didn't want to get hurt, but there's that sense of like freedom and independence that they didn't have before when having kids. So this was a month-long trip they're planning out. So they get on the plane, go up to Canada, and then they have to take a car to get closer to the area they want to get. And then they have to hike the rest of the way. And even so, as they were hiking, they realized and remembered, oh yeah, we actually have to take a plane to get it even further. So they meet their travel guide and they go in there. And they've been studying this map for months. This is a month-long trip. They had to plan everything out: rations, food, camp setups. And they were actually going with their two friends. So Mary and Ronnie really was excited for this because this was a huge trip for them. Absolutely insane. It was so great in so many ways. They get to their first lodge up in the Northern Territories, and they're sitting around the table, eating their lunch, and they're just like, you know what? I'm starting to second guess this. Ronnie's telling that to Mary, and Mary's just looking at Ron like, I don't know if we should do this. I mean, this is a lot, even though we've been prepping for it. Are we really ready for this type of venture? I mean, we're in our mid 40s already. And Ronnie's like, you know what? You're right, but I think we have to do this. Let's say this be our send all. This will be our last big adventure before kind of calling it quits on the international hiking and stuff. You know, they for some reason had this really weird feeling going on this trip, and they couldn't understand why. Something was really bothering them. But anyways, they decided to go on with the trip anyway when they were at that camp. That's when they decided to move along. And the travel guide said, here, take this with you. This will give you extra help. This is a map of the whole area you're going. Your map's great, but this was specifically designed for this. This is another reason you hired me, so we can get you to where you need to go and be safe and sound no matter where you are. I also taught you all the locations of the peaks in the different mountainous regions. Now you remember that, right? And they're like, yes, of course. And you're going to see later on in this story that they wish they have said, no, we need a little more help first. Because there's going to be moments where they're going to regret not talking to that travel guide more. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why didn't this travel guide go with them? And the fact is that in that area, They didn't really have the travel guides go any further. They kind of just say after a point, this is for your adventure. And not only that, they were going to meet up with friends, and they didn't really want to have someone always with them. They wanted adventure and take the risk on their own. So there's many factors actually going into this whole situation, considering the unique area they're also in. So they head on their way away from camp. They're going into the mountainous region and they're like, wow, this is beautiful. You can tell that it really was carved out by big icebergs. There's a lot of debate on how that happened and everything, but it's absolutely beautiful. So they're going in, they're walking next to this beautiful stream. The water's rushing in. It's absolutely pure blue, a beautiful thing to see. And they're going up. And they actually not only were mountain climbers, but they really enjoyed hiking large rock faces. They would get things ready and everything like that, put their places in and climb up, get the next rope, get things situated, plant it in the rock. They were really into that type of thing. So they're going forward, they're walking up, and then they see their friends off in the distance, up farther in the stream, kind of on the side, because they actually got a boat because they were actually going to go do some rafting in this type of water. And this area, specifically in the Northern Territories, actually wasn't too bad to go boating in. And they're going up, they meet up, they're like, hey, great to see you. We're so happy to see you're actually here. We didn't know if you got lost or anything because we've been waiting a little while down by Camp 1, and we even started second guessing our idea for this whole thing. Like, should we turn around or not? And their two friends are like, no, it's fine. We're here. We kind of thought the same thing, but we're like, this is a great experience. We're also in our mid 40s and we've been friends for a long time. And, let's just go do it. Why would we not go and try this out? So they actually all had a good laugh at that point, realizing they both had the same situation. It was just overall very fun and a great experience for these couples. So it was actually two couples here. It was Ronnie and Mary and then their friends. So it was four of them on this hike in total on this month-long trip. However, the friends want to bow out at 2 weeks. So they said, we're only going to do 2 weeks. We changed our mind. We only packed for 2 weeks. We want to get back, see the kids and the grandkids. And Ronnie and Mary's like, okay, that makes sense. We might do the same because we have some new grandbabies on the way as well. We don't know necessarily what the next 2 weeks might bring. Maybe we'll be like, okay, after 2 weeks we're done, even though they planned for a month. So they go along, start hiking, and it's getting like dark at this point, and they're actually really in this nice pine grove, and they're setting up camp, and they're getting everything laid out. They got the camps all nice and neatly made up, and you can see these beautiful owls in the trees in a little bit of the distance. You can see some more birds migrating and stuff like that in this area. And they're just sitting there just like, wow, this is absolutely beautiful. It's so clean, the air's so crisp. It's also cold, but they have their nice camp set up. Everything's just going so well so far in the day. They're eating their food, and it's approaching nighttime. They're sitting by the fire and like, okay, it's time to go to bed. We're going to see you guys early in the morning to get started because we're actually going to go hike and climb this rock face over there. So Ronnie and Mary go to bed, and their friends go to bed as well. They wake up around like 5:30 a.m. They're like, okay, hey, wake up. It's time to go. Then zip. They keep their camp there because they're actually only about a mile away with this rock face. They're going to go and climb it. So they get everything packed up. They're walking over with their friends, and Ronnie and Mary's friends seem really tired and lethargic that day. Something was really off with them, and they couldn't really see why. Their friends were so tired. So they're walking over, and they're like, hey, are you guys okay? Because you are really tired. They're like, yeah, we didn't sleep that great last night. It was too hot in the tent. It was our first night really out of our beds. We're just not feeling the greatest. And Ronnie and Mary are like, okay, do you want to skip this today? We can just go venture around. Would that be better for you? And they're like, no, this is fine. It's honestly just the way we're feeling, but it's not going to affect how we're hiking. So they go up to the rock face and they get their gear out. They're starting to get everything ready, and they start climbing, getting things placed in, some of those like sticks and stuff like that. They really get shoved on the rocks to help them climb the rocks more. They're getting the ropes laid out, and their friends are going last. You can see how lethargic they are. They're just really tired and out of it. They're making their way up, and they're looking down at their friends, and they're making their way up, and one of the friends slips. Luckily, they're all strapped in, but slips, bashes his head off the rock, and his wife's like, "Are you okay? This is not a good situation." She's starting to freak out. Ronnie and Mary are up there like, "What's going on?" And they look down and they can see that their friends are injured. And at this point, they're all freaked out. They're like, okay, we're getting down. We're going to stop climbing this rock face. As they're making their way down, you can see not only did he hit his head off this rock, he has the helmet on and everything, gear's all proper. He hits his head off this rock. His leg is now stuck in this part of the crevice on this rock. And like I said, it's like around 100, 200 feet up in this middle area. His foot's stuck in this crevice, and he is freaking out. And his wife's like, help us, come back down. We need to get his foot out of there. As they're coming down, they actually realize the safety rope that was attached to him isn't properly engaged. And it starts coming loose, and he falls forward. And the worst part is, because that safety rope isn't really secured to him, he falls forward, and his knee, not only is his leg still stuck in there, his leg snaps the knee. And he goes straight down like this. And the only thing keeping him there is his tendons and skin. And his leg is still stuck in that crevice right where the knee is. But his body's hanging and he's screaming for help. He's like, this is so painful. I need to get out of this. Help me get out of this. This is horrible. I can't stand this anymore. Get me out of this. And Ronnie and Mary are making their way safely down. But Ronnie's at this point is like, I don't care. I want to get my friend out of here. This is a lot. This isn't right that they're having to go through this. This is too much. We need to do something now. He's freaking out. All these things are coming to his mind. And he gets down to the point and sees it. And there's blood coming out of the knee area. And you can see kind of where things are severed. And Ronnie could really see the problem at this point. He was never really in the blood. It always made him faint, made him feel sick. But he's like, I have to help him. We got to get him out of here. He's going to bleed out and die. And the worst part is, because of the way the rock was, the way his foot got ledged in there, it's at an angle, and it kind of got his leg more stuck in that little crevice. So he goes over, and Mary's coming down. And Ronnie, with all of his might, is getting against the rock and pulling up at an angle to push out, get this calf and his foot out of this crevice. And it's causing him immense pain. I mean, his friend's screaming, help, get me out of this. Ah! He's screaming in so much pain. And Ronnie eventually gets to get the leg slightly loose. But as he does, not only does his leg fall in more, so it actually falls in this crevice more, so now his leg's stuck even worse. This is a horrible experience his friends having to go through. Ronnie and Mary and his wife, they're just all in pain, emotional pain, and just distressed by the situation. And he's just sitting in there. He's like, God help me. As soon as he says that, Ronnie actually ends up getting his leg out as it went in, but he got it out at an angle. And then when he pulls it out, blood just starts pouring out of this guy's knee area, right where the skin and the bone was like separated. And he is like crying at this point. He is in so much pain. But he ends up getting his friend down. As he's going down, you can see there's some loose rocks up top, right where they kind of got the rope mounted. You're supposed to clear that when you get up there. But as Ronnie and Mary made their way up, these rocks weren't cleared because they were so focused on getting back down to help their friends. And one of the rocks comes down, and this thing is coming down at such a speed. It's a good sized rock. It's the size of like 5 like regular sized heads, if that makes sense. And it's coming down, and it knocks Ronnie's friend, the guy, out. Knocks him right in the head. And he's no longer in pain because he's out like a light, but now it's even a worse situation. It's like, how much more is this guy going to have bad luck? This guy just got knocked out by this rock as he's making his way down this cliffside, Ronnie's like, okay, this is even worse. Now he's taking dead weight. And as soon as he took that dead weight, he start going quicker and quicker. And he's like, I need help. You need to grab the ropes. Stop it. And so they're making their way down only about 30 feet at this point, but that's enough to kill you. So the two ladies were able to grab the ropes and slow him down just enough to where Ronnie didn't get hurt and he was able to get his friend down for safety. He gets him down there and he sees the blood. Luckily, Ronnie was in the military. He had a tourniquet on him, so he tourniqueted his leg, stopped the bleeding. And he luckily did because the blood was horrible. It was all over the rock wall. It was all over his wife. It was all over Ronnie's wife. It was a horrible moment. Ronnie himself was covered in blood. He's like, okay, we need to get him to the hospital. We need to get back out of here. So he actually goes, he's able to lift him. The two wives grab him up in the shoulder torso area and they take him all the way back. They leave their gear. They don't care at this point. This is an emergency. And they get him back to the little camp. They're packing up and he's trying to treat him. And his wife's crying and like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'm freaking out. What do we do in this situation? And Ronnie's like, okay, I had a plan for this. I have an emergency satellite radio. We're going to call and get out of here. We're going to get us out of here. It was a radio and a phone, so it was like a 2-in-1. He calls up on the radio and it's like, okay, we have a situation. We need emergency medical evac. We have someone critically injured here that also passed out. And the reply is like, hey, what's going on? And he tells him the story. And then he asks, does he have a tourniquet on? And he's like, yes, of course, I got a tourniquet on. He was bleeding out. He's like, what happened? I said, we were at the North Face in the Northern Territories. And he just goes radio silent. You don't hear anything. And a couple hours later, Ronnie's there with the guy. The guy wakes up and he's like, hey, we do have help coming. We just don't know when. It went radio silent. He's like, what do you mean it went radio silent? And he is pale as a sheet. He lost so much blood. But thankfully, they were able to tourniquet his leg. Now, you can leave a tourniquet on for a while before you start really losing all feeling in your leg. Once it's tourniqueted, you lose the feeling. You can also lose the lower half of your leg if you don't get blood flow in a certain amount of time. So he does hear back. He's like, hey, we just rescued someone from that area. We're going to be back soon, but it's really strange that we just had a rescue operation there. And it was something very similar to your story. Are you sure this isn't one of their friends that got stuck? And he's just like, what do you mean? And the guy's like, never mind, we'll talk to you when we come. And the rescue helicopter's coming because there's actually a little emergency camp over there right where the airplane landed. Helicopter's coming. Is like, okay, we're going to get you up here. This trip's ending now. This was a sign for me. This is enough. So they get him up on the stretcher. They get him in the helicopter. And they take him back to the airport and they're talking and like, hey, do you know someone named Ronnie and Mary? And Ronnie and Mary, funnily enough, were like, wait, well, that's our names. And the guy, the doctor, just goes pale white. He's like, we just rescued someone named Ronnie and Mary in their mid-40s. And everyone in that room just goes completely eerily quiet. And you can actually see across, there was someone named Ronnie and Mary. And there was a priest there just doing a prayer over them because they just died. And something really strange is the doctor's like, okay, is this some prank or, were you involved in this? And they're like, no, what do you mean? And they show their IDs. They really were Ronald and Mary. And their friends were like, okay, this is really weird. And like, this isn't funny. Why would you even make a joke that they would even be a part of something like this with a murder or, a homicide or whatever happened? And the coroner later on pronounces that they were dead by natural causes. They actually fell down a cliff on the other side of that rock face. It was weird because as he was going up, his friend was going up this rock face and he slipped and he hit his head. The reason he did that is because he heard a scream and it spooked him out. So I almost lost his friend because he heard this scream, this echoing scream. It was actually in that same crevice area is where the other Ronnie and Mary fell to their demise. So it was really weird linkage there, and it was just so spooked out, and the doctor couldn't believe it. He wanted to believe that they had something to do with this because he couldn't believe that that was a coincidence, not in any circumstance. So, luckily, his friend does recover, and he actually has to get his leg amputated. Unfortunately, there was so much damage done to it, and there was enough blood loss and cut off circulation within the time that he lost the lower half of his leg. But luckily, he is alive, and he ended up seeing his grandkids again with his wife. Everything turned out great there. But Ronnie and Mary never could get over the fact that what happened that day. Something really eerie and strange was about all that. They never recovered from that, and they still talk to their kids and their grandkids about it to this day. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. This was really unique and kind of like something with a twist at the end of it. If you all enjoyed, please leave a like and share, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate all feedback on my content as well. You can leave it in the comments below or email me. Again, have a great night and a great day. Oh, and also, don't forget, I'm on Spotify, and now all my podcasts are on YouTube. I hope you enjoy that, and don't forget I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. TikTok is a big platform for me, as well as YouTube. They're my biggest platforms, and I'm going to continue to make more and more content and better quality content for you, the people, the ones of the community. And that'll be it for today. All right, bye for now.